Rurouni fucking Kenshin. Well, the full title being Rurouni Kenshin without the fucking, but you get the idea. Now, the first time I've ever seen Rurouni Kenshin before was in either 2005 or 2006. And it is interesting to note that this anime has a mixture of historical characters and fictional characters, so that's kind of a neat idea what they did with this one. So without dragging along, we'll just explain the basic story. Rurouni Kenshin is based in Tokyo in the year 1878, and they are in the Meiji era, and it follows the main character Rurouni Kenshin. And there was a war that happened before the story began, and during that war he was known as Batosai the Manslayer, because he was really good at killing people awesomely. And after that war ended, he disappeared without anyone knowing where he is, and he became a wandering samurai who carries a reverse blade sword. And now he protects the people that cannot protect themselves with his reverse blade sword, but he did make a vow saying that he shall never kill ever again. So he just likes to beat people up with his sword that can't cut through anything. And one more thing to note about his character that I do find to be pretty amusing is that, casually, he acts pretty goofy and funny sometimes. But when something serious happens, he acts all like really serious and badass-like. In fact, his character, in that sense, kinda reminds me of Vash the Stampede from Trigun a little bit. That's just something interesting I wanted to point out. Well, anyways, he stays at a dojo school who is run by Kamiya Koru. At first, when she meets Kenshin, she thinks that he is like a massive serial killer that's been going around killing people because he's been wandering around with a sword on him, which is banned. And the murderer is ruining her school's name and she thinks that Kenshin did it, but well, obviously it's not him. So after him saving her, he ends up living at the school with her. Same thing with an old man named Dr. Genzai and two little kids. So after the first event that happened, they end up meeting even more people, such as Miyujin Hakiko, who was an orphan from a samurai family and happened to work as a thief under some criminals. And after when he is saved by Kenshin, he wants to learn how to be like Kenshin because he knows how to kick people's asses. And lastly, I'll mention Sagara Sanosuke. When he was young, he was a member of the Sahiko army, which was annihilated by the Imperial Army. So after that, he becomes a fighter for hire, aka a hitman. But at the end, he ends up being best friends of Kenshin. And that's the basic of what you need to know about the characters. And even the story too. Although there is a lot of talk about governments and stuff, and normally I would be like, I don't give a shit about government stuff. But in this anime, they do make it to sound pretty interesting. But I can at least say that the characters are really enjoyable. And various situations happen, and one example I'll bring up is, well, the one where someone tries to piss off Kenshin so much that he'll go back to his old ways of killing people and becoming the manslayer again. But there's definitely a lot of great stuff to be had. Now as for the animation, I think it actually looks pretty good for its time. Especially whenever something is like being like destructive and whatnot, that definitely does look really good. But there's not a lot of complaining to do with the animation, so really, it's good. Now as for the voice acting, I also think it's pretty good. Whether you're watching in English or in Japanese, I think it's good either way. But personally, I prefer the Japanese one because it sounds really suiting for this kind of anime. I mean, it's about samurais and it's based in Japan and all that good stuff, so you know, listening to it in Japanese definitely sounds a bit more natural, at least for all I know. But that's not to say that the English one is like god-awful or anything like that. Actually, it does have a pretty decent cast. Now, just to name a couple voice actors that play in it, I'll just name a few, such as Richard Cansino, Rebecca Forstad, Lex Lang, Steve Staley, Kirk Thornton, Steve Blum, Wendy Lee, Crispin Freeman, Mona Marshall, Michael Sorich, Bob Preppenbrook, Michelle Ruff, and Jameson Pierce, just to name a few. Yeah, there's a lot of other voice actors I didn't mention, but I think that should give you a good idea that, yeah, there's definitely a good cast to be had. So to me, the voice acting is good. Now as for the music, yes, we're going to be talking about the music here again, but this time I'm going to be explaining a little bit of a story here that maybe you might relate to. Now the music within the anime itself is all well and good, but what I'm going to be talking about here is the intro. When I first watched this anime and I saw the intro, it was all like heavy guitars and like loud drums and whatnot, and it sounded really badass sounding. And then a couple seconds later, the entire tone of the song just drastically changed into like a female singer with like a really high-pitched voice. It sounds all like happy and like pink fluffy bunnies and rainbows and flowers with happy faces on them and whatever type of horseshit you can come up with. Yeah, it like really threw me off and I was like, what the fuck happened here? Or what I would say if I saw this today, I'd be like, well, that escalated quickly. Yeah, it's one of those things I'll never forget about this anime, and it's pretty funny thinking about it now. But honestly, as for the song itself, yeah, I actually do kind of like it. In fact, it's really catchy. It's just, you know, it just really threw me off. But I mean, hey, it's catchy, and therefore, I kind of like it. Now, as for the score for this anime, what I'm gonna give it, well, you're probably not gonna believe me, but I'm actually thinking, yeah, fuck it. I'm gonna give it a 10 out of 10. Now, like I said about the 10 out of 10 score, yeah, I don't mean it like this anime is like better than everything and that there's nothing wrong with it at all, like nothing can touch it. No, I don't mean it like that. Now, yes, there are some small flaws within the anime, just like anything else, but most of the time I don't even notice them, or when I do notice them, they're just so minor that, you know, it's like, I would have to be like nitpicking the entire damn thing for like an hour. But I think this is really the best they could have done with this kind of anime, and well, it's fucking awesome, and it's definitely one of my many favorites. Even back then I loved it, and I still love it today.